I crossed the graduation stage alone. My name echoed in a room packed with families that weren't mine. 3 empty seats in the front row stared back at me, colder than the February air outside. While I shook hands with the dean, my parents were across town hosting a Super Bowl party. They were laughing, eating, celebrating everything except me. I held it together until I reached the parking lot, diploma slipping in my hands. That was the moment something inside me broke. Something else finally woke up. My name is Annabelle Rowan. The morning of my graduation began with a kind of hope I should have known better than to hold. I woke before my alarm, nerves buzzing under my skin. The cheap fabric of my rented gown hung from the closet door like a promise I had earned inch by inch. 6 years of night lectures, early shifts, and quiet sacrifices had led me to that moment. I brewed coffee in the dark and let myself imagine for a second that maybe today my family would meet me halfway. Not a parade. Just my mother's soft smile in the audience. My father lifting a hand in that casual wave. My brother pretending he wasn't bored. Tiny gestures that say, "You matter. We see you." The house was quiet while I got ready. I slipped into the only heels I owned, the ones I bought secondhand for job interviews. I checked my phone more times than I'll admit, waiting for a message that never came. Instead, an old group chat lit up with Super Bowl chatter. My mother sent a picture of her famous dip, perfectly arranged. My father joked about which team would disappoint him this year. Mason bragged about a bet. No one mentioned the ceremony. Not one of them asked if I was nervous or excited or breathing. At the auditorium, families flooded the entrance in bursts of color. Bouquets, balloons, kids darting between legs. My row was near the front. Ushers had placed 3 seats aside with my last name printed on the backs. Seeing them there felt surreal. I smoothed my gown and checked my phone again. Still nothing. My chest tightened, but I swallowed it down. A small, ridiculous part of me whispered, maybe they'll slip in late. Maybe they're parking. Maybe traffic. Then a picture pinned from the living room. The TV blaring pregame commentary. My father's hand holding up a beer in the corner. Mason frozen mid-laugh. The truth pressed its weight onto my shoulders. They weren't coming. They had never planned to. The parking lot was colder than I expected. February wind sliced through my gown. I made it to the back row before my knees gave out. One moment I was walking, holding my diploma with both hands. The next I was sitting on the curb, the world blurring around me. My phone buzzed again. My mother grinning beside a tray of wings. My father raising a glass. Mason posing with friends. Not one of them wrote, "How did it go, Belle?" Not one of them apologized. The silence said more than words ever could. Tears hit my gown before I realized I was crying. Not loud, dramatic sobs. Quieter. The kind of crying that feels like pressure giving way. I wiped my face with the sleeve of my gown and laughed once, humorless. I had crossed that stage alone while my family hosted a watch party for a game they'd seen 100 times. When my phone buzzed again, it wasn't them. It was my Aunt Helena. Saw the ceremony photos online. "Proud of you, sweetheart. Call me when you're free." Her message was simple. It settled differently inside me. Someone had seen me today. Someone who didn't want anything from me. My diploma sat across my lap like a question I couldn't answer. I couldn't go home and pretend it didn't hurt. I couldn't plaster on a smile and laugh at my father's jokes. Something inside me had shifted. I opened a travel app. It wasn't dramatic. No triumphant music. Just my thumb hovering over a list of flights I'd saved months ago. One-way ticket, Colorado. A retreat I'd bookmarked on a sleepless night. I had always dismissed it as a someday trip. Today, I booked it. Snow powdered the mountains like sifted sugar. From the airplane window, Colorado looked unreal. I pressed my forehead to cold glass and felt, for the first time in years, a quiet. No buzzing group chats. No sudden emergency bills. No guilt slipping under the door like a draft. Just white ridges, open sky, and the unfamiliar thought, maybe I don't have to go back. The retreat sat against a pine-covered hillside. The lobby smelled like cedar and citrus. A woman at the front desk greeted me with softness. "Welcome, Annabelle. We're glad you're here." No expectations attached. No one had said my name like that in a long time. My room overlooked a frozen lake. I watched the ice shimmer and felt my shoulders begin to drop. I told myself the trip was a pause, a place to reset before returning to Hartford and resuming the role I'd always played: good daughter, reliable sister, walking wallet. But the illusion cracked the next morning. After a massage, I checked my phone. 15 missed messages. 13 from my family. "Mom, can you send a few hundred? Dad needs help with a bill." Mason lost my card again. You know how it is. None of them asked about the ceremony. None of them said congratulations. The final message from Helena read, "Honey, check your credit report now." My stomach dropped. I opened the app and waited for the screen to load. When it did, my breath left me. Accounts I didn't recognize. Store cards I'd never opened. A personal loan I had never signed for. Inquiries stacked one after another. The dates lined up with every emergency they'd made in the past month. Money they hadn't needed. Money they'd replaced with something far worse. This wasn't just neglect. This was deliberate. They hadn't just skipped my graduation. They'd used my future to fund their present. I gripped the phone until my knuckles burned. The hurt was deep, but beneath it something else stirred. A steady, rising heat. Anger, yes. Also recognition. This was the moment the story changed. By the time I called Helena back, my hands were steady. "You need to allow your sweetheart," she said softly. Her words landed like a blueprint. A path forward. I flew back to Hartford carrying a folder thick with payments, bills, and inquiries. Carmen organized the documents with a precision that grounded me. "This is enough, Annabelle. We can move forward," she said, tapping the stack gently. Within a week, a restraining order was granted. My credit was frozen. My accounts were secured. For the first time, boundaries rose around me like small protective walls. Fragile, but real. Then came an email from Portland. A promotion. A transfer. A chance to start over in a city where no one knew the version of me who apologized for existing. I accepted without hesitation. Packing felt like shedding skin. With Tessa's help, I boxed years of exhaustion into cardboard and watched movers load them into a truck heading west. Portland was everything my old life wasn't. Quiet, respectful, unintrusive. My new team valued my work. My apartment overlooked city lights. Healing came slowly, like warmth returning to numb fingers. Then a business leadership conference invited me to speak about financial independence. Carmen said, "Your voice could help someone who thinks they're alone." So I said yes. The ballroom was enormous, rows of chairs and a stage washed in soft light. I smoothed my notes backstage and stepped to the podium. "Thank you for having me," I began. "Today, I want to talk about..." A crash at the back of the room cut through my sentence. At first I thought someone had dropped something. Then I heard the voice I'd spent months trying to outrun. "That's our daughter." The doors burst open. My family flooded in like a storm. My father red-faced. My mother clutching her chest. Mason holding his phone up to record. Every instinct screamed to shrink, to apologize, to make myself small for their comfort. But something steady arose in me, shaped by the quiet of Colorado and the retreat's guidance. I had nothing left to lose. I leaned into the microphone. "Security," I said calmly. "They are in violation of a court order. Remove them, please." The room stilled. Security moved in. My father roared. Mason kept recording. My mother shouted accusations. A detective strode into the doorway. "Douglas Rowan and Mason Rowan, we have warrants for financial fraud and identity misuse. Please step forward." The room erupted into whispers. My father sputtered that it was ridiculous. "Family," he insisted. But the detective did not flinch. Family does not excuse criminal behavior. As officers cuffed them, my mother lunged toward me, eyes wet but not with remorse. "Annabelle, stop this. We need you." I shook my head. You needed my credit. You needed my silence. You never needed me. When they were led away, the ballroom felt impossibly quiet. Hundreds of eyes turned toward me. I stepped back to the microphone and began again. I had come to talk about budgeting techniques, but I spoke about something else. I told the truth. Not with bitterness, but with clarity. I spoke about the empty seats at my graduation. The parking lot tears. The retreat where I chose myself. The discovery of stolen credit lines. The slow rebuilding of a life. When I finished, silence hung for a breath. Then the audience rose to their feet. Applause washed over me in a way I had never felt before. Not pity, recognition, courage. The investigation moved faster than I expected. Papers showed accounts opened without my consent. Loan inquiries tied to my father and Mason. Patterns of manipulation stretching back farther than I wanted to admit. The court upheld the restraining order. My credit was restored piece by piece. Portland became more than a fresh start. It became home. My office walls filled with pieces of a life I chose, photos with co-workers who became friends, a small plant Tessa insisted I keep alive, and finally a framed diploma hanging above my desk. Not to prove anything to them, but to remind myself how far I had walked alone. Some nights I still heard echoes of old guilt. They faded quickly now, drowned out by something steadier. Safety. The soft but undeniable truth that I had saved myself. Standing backstage at my next speaking event, I looked out at rows of people waiting. People who chose to be there, who showed up without being asked. I touched the edge of my note cards and felt a quiet certainty settle in. Choosing myself hadn't destroyed my life. It had rebuilt it. If you've ever felt that way too, share your story. Subscribe for more.